So, as you can see, it's a pretty cold and miserable day today. All I was doing was sitting inside, watching YouTube, watching TV, and I thought, why don't I do something constructive and do up a video which explains everything that I typically take on a track day. Now this is going to vary from person to person, obviously. This is typically how I do things. But obviously if you're just getting into track days, or if you're a more professional rider, it's going to vary what you're going to take. So to start off, I've got pretty much everything I take on sort of a one-day turnaround track day. So a track day where I'm not going to stay overnight. I've got pretty much everything that I'd normally take out here. So here's the bike, obviously. I'm going to load the Supermoto up. We'll talk about what that ratchet strap's for in a second. Here I've got fuel. Again, if it's a one-day ride, I might only take 2 of these small jerry cans full of fuel. But on longer rides or weekends where I stay overnight, I'll probably take something like this and fill it up beforehand. For this example, I'm going to try and load both. I'll take a chair, obviously. You need a chair to be able to sit down. This reclining chair is awesome. It's nothing better than after a really intense session out on the track to be able to sit down on a reclining chair and just get all your energy back in as quick as possible, ready for the next session. Tools. So probably overkill. Well, it's definitely overkill, but this is my pretty much the majority of tools which I'd use to work on a bike, and I could do almost anything on a bike with these set of tools. And I normally just bring a whole set with me, to be honest. I never really had to do anything major on any of the bikes that I ride while at the track, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, over here, there's a few pieces. I'll go through this stack that I take in a second. Let me go through it one at a time, actually, so it makes sense. Some back up here. So this one goes at the top. So what I've got in here is just basically heaps of odd nuts and bolts. There's some safety wire stuff here. This is for oil filters, if you want to wire down your oil filter. A lot of other little nitty-gritty pieces. So this is handy to have. I've actually used these in the past where for some reason or another a bolt has rattled loose in a bike, whether I haven't done it up tight enough or it wasn't done tight enough from factory. It's good to have spare bolts here ready to go, particularly for the more important bolts. So that's that one. Next one on the stack. So this is all GoPro stuff. So it also is handy to have this, to be honest. I do a lot of recording, particularly nowadays. I never used to, but started to do more of it. So with having different GoPros, different cases, batteries, and tripods, things like that, it's good to be able to have it all in one spot. So I can put it in here. This is watertight, keeps everything really secure. That's a good way to be able to keep all your GoPro related stuff. Okay. Next one, this is probably going to be the more important one for people. Tire warmers. Again, it's going to vary from rider to rider. I don't know what everyone's pace is, but if you're at the pace where you need tire warmers, good to be able to have them in a place where you can protect them. So I don't have an individual case for these ones, but they fit in here nicely. So when I'll get to the track, I'll pull those out. Portable air inflator. So basically I can get, I could probably pump my tires at least 20 times in a day from flat with a single charge of this. Really handy to have as you're varying tire pressures and don't want to have to mess around with taking a generator or something like that. So yeah, you can basically be very portable and charge tires up as you need. These are the power cables for the tyre warmers. Under here, I'm not going to get it out, is a tyre pressure gauge. There's an air pump for the air forks. There's air forks on this bike. And here, this is a motor device for you being able to set up your suspension. And to be able to do that if you're on your own, basically, which is very handy to have. Okay, this normally goes in here, so I'm going to put that in there now. And on the last stack on the bottom, okay, so normally I just put any spare oils or things like that I'm going to take, or coolant or things like that. Brake fluids, grease, some WD-40 mixed in here, alcohol. This I don't always use, but this is a fuel filter cleaner. You can pour fuel into this, so you don't pour anything dirty into your bike if you're worried. What else? For bleeding brakes, some clear tube here. So again, not really had to do anything with this, but it's good to be able to have this as a backup. Actually, I do lie, I've had bled my brakes at the track a few times in the past, so again, good to be able to have it on hand if you need it. So fortunately, with this rigid setup, I can take all of that and because it stacks the volume of stuff vertically, it doesn't take up too much real estate in my car, so I end up having all that stacked quite nicely, ready to go. Okay, gear, that's the next part. So I take all my gear around in one of these portable utility boxes. What brand is this? I think it's Husky. And I can fit everything in here, regardless of if I'm taking my two-piece setup or single piece setup. I can always fit everything in here. So the obvious one, helmet, gloves, boots, socks around the boots. In this little pouch I've got all sorts of earplugs. Good to have those in a separate pouch. Air freshener, which is definitely good to have because when you're out there in the stinking heat and sweating all over the place, it's good to be able to spray that before you pack everything up. Okay, jacket goes in there. So everything does fit in here, but it is a pretty tight fit. Still, everything fits. Okay, so the only other thing which I haven't mentioned is we'll take a fan most times. It's good to be able to have that blowing while you're sitting down and cool off. Okay, so other than that, the two stands for the bike. This bike, I will get away with using both of these. Yeah, really, it's just up to you if you need them or not. I guess it comes down to if you're running tire warmers, which I typically do. Okay, so probably now is a good time to go over to the van. So this is a 2017 Mercedes Sprinter, which, as you can see, has no seats in the rear. It was a passenger van, so it did at one point have seats lined up in here. They've now all been pulled out, and what I've done is I got just a slate of board from Home Depot, or two in fact. The one underneath that's painted, you can see here, the black one. All I did was map out holes to be able to line up, having some inverted bolts which fit nicely into the recesses here, and have each of those bolts come up. I nut them down, and that secures the board, and attached to that board is a wheel chock to hold a bike. You'll see there's heaps of different holes here that aren't being used. I've got all sorts of configurations of being able to put these wheel chocks back, further forward, further back, to have multiple chocks. And I also have a manual tire changer in there which I can bolt down in here and change tires. Hate having to do it, but it works as a last resort. This is the other piece that takes up all the room in here. So this is a Honda EU 3000 IS generator. This thing, way overkill for just me going to a track day. I could probably get away with one of those 2000 or 2200 units, but yeah, I've had this for quite a while now, and it always does the job. Ultra reliable, nice and quiet. It's heavy as hell, so if I'm going to the track on my own and I want to clear out everything in the car, or if I want to set up away from the car, I have to get someone to help me lift it in and out of the car. I mean, I have done it on my own before, but couldn't imagine anything worse than going to a track day and putting my back out trying to get this in and out of the car. So good to be able to find someone to help you. It is really heavy. But the other thing that I do more commonly is, if I'm setting up for a day on my own, I'll just leave it in the car here, leave this door open, it'll exhaust out, and then over on this side you'll see here I've got an awning which I can just branch out and set up under that, so any power I can run from the generator and sit under the awning, which is pretty cool. So what I'll do is, I'm not going on a track day, but just to show everyone how everything looks in the car, I'm going to go ahead and get the bike and everything in here. So I'm loading up the bike on the right hand side. I see so many people not do this with their ramps. It's completely up to you if you want to do this or not. I always do it, but tying down the ramp to the back of the car just basically prevents the ramp from slipping out. Might not be the biggest deal in the world if it did happen with a supermoto and a van that's not that far off the ground, but if you're loading a sports bike, a valuable sports bike, better be safe than sorry. Okay, so out of everything here, first piece that's going to go in is the bike. Okay, sorry, this ratchet strap. The van height won't let you load this in without collapsing the forks, so that's the first piece to do. I would recommend for people to, if you're doing this, be pretty careful. This is the sort of thing that could kill you if you did it wrong. You want to make sure you're getting tension in here before you start ratcheting it up. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, so like I said, first thing, bike's gonna in the car. Sounds like that guy's just started cleaning up his lawn. So there you go, easy as that. Now once it's in here, the Metris comes with pre-drilled hooks, so I'll just ratchet to the bike, put some straps on either side of the forks and ratchet that down. I'm not going to do that now because I'm not going to drive around with this. Okay. Now, there is a pretty systematic approach to doing this, because whether you believe it or not, I can get everything that I've just run through into that car, even though it's got that big generator and a bike sitting in it. But it has to be done in a particular order. So, gears first. Nice. Next, is this stack of odds bits, GoPros, tire warmers. This thing is pretty heavy, so what I typically do is break that in half first, put that one there. Put these two in. And then put these back on. Put them on hopefully the right way. Okay. So that one's that. That one's locked down. Takes a bit of manoeuvring, but it is possible to get this stacked up nicely behind that. Okay, next, these are the tools. If it's my dirt bike or the supermoto, no issue putting these long wires. If it's sports bike, you usually have to put it on an angle or face up this way. Okay, almost there. This is going out the back of the car for obvious reasons. Like that. This one's going right here. Now, I should have mentioned, I sometimes will put this in before everything else if it's a long trip and I'm worried that the bike is gonna shift around, or if I have to do any sort of, you know, off-roading to be able to get to a dirt bike trail or something like that. Then yeah, I'll probably chop this up on the rear before I tighten it down on the front. But for this, it's not going to be too big of a deal. The track I would have gone to if I was just loading this is only 20 minutes away, so I'll just let that rest there. This is the lift for the front. This one I can usually just get right behind. Like that. And the chair fits Really nice and snug. I can take 2 of these, by the way, but you'll see why. It's really nice and snug in here. When the door is shut, it won't fold in and fall on the bike. That's all that. So the last thing is the fan. This one's normally the trickiest one for me because I usually end up just having to chuck it on top of something else. But what I try and do is either fit it in here, if it's the dirt bike, get it in there pretty nicely, like that. Or if it's a sports bike and you need extra room, I'll put it on top of the tools. Whew. So that is it. So you'll see, I've got everything in here now. Bike, 2 lifts, fuel, a lot of fuel for just 1 day's worth of riding, tools, and heap odds and sods, including the tire warmers, tools, a chair to sit down on, a fan to keep me cool, a generator that's going to be running all day with plenty enough fuel to fuel it, and yeah, an awning, which when I get there I'll be able to pull that awning out, pull everything out, run power from the generator right away to where I'm sitting and where the bike's sitting, and yeah, be comfortable for a day. So I have run this setup before and taken a sleeping bag and slept in the car. It's not it's not always a comfortable experience, because basically when you're taking that much stuff and leaving it outside of the car or trying to sleep in it when it's in the car, because you're worried someone's going to take it, it's pretty cramped. Typically the car starts stinking out of fuel halfway through the day as well. So yeah, I don't know, most times if I'm staying overnight I'll try and find accommodation nearby and maybe rent a garage to put everything in. But yeah, one day hopefully have a bigger van, and it'll be much more comfortable to be able to sleep in. But that's generally it. The ramp will get folded back up, put behind where it came from behind the chairs, and I will be good to go. There's obviously the space on the front passenger seat as well, so taking an esky with some food and water is definitely essential, or spare clothes and things like that as well. You can easily fit that in the front. So that is a full setup, which is now fit in to a Mercedes Sprinter van, ready to go for a day of riding at the track. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this.